A recent Stanford AI Index report noted that corporate investment in artificial intelligence surged past $90 billion last year alone. $90 billion? That signals a massive shift that is literally rewriting the rules of our reality as we speak. I am so thrilled you're here today because we're going to unpack the specific mechanisms driving this change. We're moving way past the basic introductions and digging directly into the source material to really understand the structural, economic, and evolutionary implications of our AI-driven future. So you're probably asking the big question at the core of all this research. How is AI actually going to change everything? Well, for those of you following the sector, you already know we're looking at a sort of dual reality. On one hand, you have hyper-efficiency. For instance, McKinsey recently projected that generative AI could automate up to 30% of the hours currently worked across the U.S. economy by 2030. Think about that scale. But on the other hand, there is the massive structural displacement that inevitably follows. In this explainer, we're cutting through all the generalized noise out there to analyze exactly how this transformation is unfolding, utilizing the absolute latest data to give you a clear, structured look at what's actually coming.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at reshaping global industries. Second, the impact on daily life. And finally, the really big one, the future of humanity.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Reshaping Global Industries. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive shift we're seeing. The stark contrast between traditional industry and an AI-transformed industry really comes down to moving from static to dynamic systems. Traditional industry relies heavily on isolated databases and manual processes. Just think of legacy supply chain software, where human analysts have to manually reroute shipments every time there's a disruption. According to recent MIT logistics data, this kind of static routing costs the global economy billions during sudden bottlenecks, like a port closure. Literally billions. Conversely, an AI-transformed industry operates on fully autonomous dynamic systems. We're talking about predictive neural networks that actively ingest global weather patterns, geopolitical news feeds, and port traffic data all in real time. If a container ship is going to hit a storm, the AI system doesn't wait for a human to notice. It just autonomously negotiates new docking fees, reroutes the vessel, and updates the entire downstream manufacturing schedule instantly.
So what you should really take away from this is that we are looking at a complete operational overhaul, driven largely by technologies like industrial digital twins. Have you heard of these? A digital twin is basically a real-time, AI-driven virtual replica of a physical supply chain or factory. By running millions of simulations per second, these systems are actively predicting and preventing hardware failures before a single gear even stops turning on the factory floor. The research indicates this level of API-driven automation can lead to a 40% reduction in logistical downtime. 40%. It's an absolute fundamental rewiring of the global economic system, laying a hyper-efficient, machine-to-machine groundwork for a completely new era of commerce.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, Impact on Daily Life. Let's bring this a little closer to home.
When we look at how this impacts us individually, we really have to move past the outdated idea of smart speakers just setting cooking timers or turning up the thermostat. The next generation AI-assisted daily routine is all about predictive, autonomous agents powered by advanced large language models. Look at the traditional side. You had the fragmented, exhausting chore of managing your life. You're manually booking flights, cross-referencing your calendar, furiously calling hotels when a flight gets canceled. But an AI-assisted routine, it utilizes agents that hold continuous, contextual awareness about your life. If your flight gets delayed, your personal AI agent autonomously negotiates with the airline's API to rebook you, emails your client to push back a meeting, and adjusts your hotel reservation, entirely in the background. It is an extraordinary leap from a tool that you have to command to an active proxy that literally acts on your behalf. So how does this magic actually happen? The mechanism for how these systems establish themselves follows a very specific three-step architectural flow. First, the introduction to the routine usually happens through a singular app or specialized interface. Step 2 is seamless integration. And this is where the technological depth really shines. Through incredibly secure API integrations and cross-platform data sharing, these isolated systems begin silently communicating. Your autonomous agent starts pulling context from your emails, your financial apps, your location data. Finally, step 3 is the total transformation of the day-to-day. The friction is completely removed. You stop manually managing all these tiny inputs and instead, you transition to an oversight role, basically just approving or denying the high-level strategies your AI agent suggests for managing your time.
This represents what analysts are now calling
the personal AI revolution. And a really crucial aspect of this micro-level transformation is the evolution of data architecture. To make these systems highly intimate without compromising your security, developers are increasingly relying on something called federated learning. This basically means your personal AI learns your unique preferences, specific habits, and goals entirely locally, right on your device. The model updates itself based on your behavior, but your raw, personal data never actually has to be sent back to some massive centralized cloud. It perfectly mirrors the huge efficiency upgrades happening at the industrial level, but heavily secured and perfectly tailored to your individual digital footprint.
Which brings us to our final and definitely most profound section. Section 3, the future of humanity. Humanity's transformation is defined in the research as the long-term existential evolution of our species alongside artificial intelligence. We are quite literally entering into an active co-evolutionary partnership. A very concrete example of this trajectory is the rapid development of brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs. Leading neurotechnology researchers are actively mapping how high-bandwidth neural implants could eventually allow our biological brains to interface directly with external computing clusters. And guys, this isn't just about typing faster on a keyboard. It's about cognitive offloading. When humans can seamlessly access the processing power of a massive neural network just by thinking, the biological limitations of memory and calculation are fundamentally altered. Our evolutionary trajectory becomes intrinsically linked to the artificial infrastructure we are building right now. The source material breaks this massive existential shift down into 3 critical areas of research. First, the evolution of human-machine interaction. Computer scientists are increasingly focused on neurosymbolic AI. These are systems that combine the pattern recognition of neural networks with the rigorous logic of traditional symbolic AI. As these systems become capable of deep reasoning, they transition from just being tools to becoming active intellectual collaborators. They're literally challenging our monopoly on logic. Second, shifting definitions of purpose. Sociologists and economists are actively modeling scenarios for what happens when cognitive labor is fully automated. If AI can perform the majority of analytical work, human economic purpose might radically shift toward hyper-creative economies, emotional intelligence sectors, or it might even necessitate new frameworks like universal basic income. Finally, long-term existential outcomes. This refers specifically to the alignment problem. Engineers are treating the challenge of ensuring superintelligent systems optimize for human flourishing as a rigorous mathematical problem. It's about coding verifiable constraints into the architecture of self-improving models to ensure their final objectives remain securely tethered to human survival.
So the crucial point we need to understand is that we are looking at the ultimate transformation. There is a direct, unbroken chain from the macro level all the way to the existential. The exact same digital twins optimizing global shipping networks are built on the same underlying transformer architecture that powers your personal AI agent. And as those systems scale up and begin interfacing more directly with human cognition, the compounding effects drive a fundamental change in human existence itself. What starts as a simple operational upgrade in a factory cascades down to completely restructure your daily life and eventually reshapes the evolutionary bounds of our entire species. As a prominent AI researcher recently pointed out, AI will not replace humans, but humans using AI will inevitably replace those who do not. As global logistics networks become fully autonomous, as the friction of our daily life is erased by personal agents, and as our species embarks on a genuine coevolutionary journey with machine intelligence, where do you fit into the future of humanity? It is an absolutely extraordinary era to be analyzing, and one we are going to continue monitoring closely as the data evolves. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and I will see you next time.